The reporter's hands were shaking as she typed the headline that would destroy Muhammad Ali forever. What she had discovered about him would shock the world. But 48 hours later, she was crying in her editor's office, begging to kill the story. What changed her mind would change your heart, too. April 3rd, 1967. The offices of the Chicago Tribune were buzzing with anticipation. Muhammad Ali had just refused induction into the U.S. Army, and public opinion was turning against him. Editor-in-chief Robert Manning called his best investigative reporter into his office. "Linda Crawford," Manning said, sliding a thick file across his desk. "I want you to destroy Muhammad Ali. Find the dirt, find the hypocrisy, show America who this draft dodger really is behind closed doors." Linda Crawford was 29 years old, ambitious, and hungry for the story that would make her career. She'd built her reputation on exposing frauds and hypocrites. Ali seemed like the perfect target, a loudmouth boxer who claimed to be a conscientious objector while living in luxury. "What's the angle?" Linda asked, already planning her attack strategy. "He says he won't fight for America because of his religious beliefs," Manning replied. "But I guarantee you this guy is living like a king while real Americans die in Vietnam. Find me proof that his faith is just a convenient excuse." Linda spent her first week compiling everything negative about Ali she could find. His boastful personality, his expensive lifestyle, his controversial statements. She was building what she thought would be a devastating expose. But what Linda Crawford didn't know was that Muhammad Ali was about to save the most important person in her life. On April 12th, Linda began following Ali around Chicago, hoping to catch him in some act of hypocrisy. She expected to find him at expensive restaurants, luxury shops, or exclusive clubs. Instead, at 6 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, she watched him drive to the south side of Chicago, to the children's ward of Cook Memorial Hospital. "What's he doing here?" Linda whispered to herself, sitting in her rental car across the street. Ali emerged from his Cadillac carrying a large bag, wearing simple clothes, no flashy jewelry, no expensive suit, just jeans and a plain t-shirt. Linda grabbed her camera and followed at a distance. What she witnessed next was not what she expected. Ali spent the next 4 hours moving from room to room in the children's cancer ward. He wasn't posing for pictures. There were no reporters, no cameras, no publicity team. Just Muhammad Ali, quietly visiting sick children who lit up when they saw him. Linda watched through the window as Ali sat beside a little boy who couldn't have been more than 7 years old. The child was bald from chemotherapy, connected to multiple machines, but his face glowed with joy as Ali showed him shadowboxing moves. "Float like a butterfly," she could barely hear Ali say through the glass, moving his hands in slow motion. "Sting like a bee. But the most important thing is having a strong heart. And you, little man, have the strongest heart I've ever seen." The boy tried to mimic Ali's movements from his hospital bed, his tiny arms throwing weak punches in the air. Ali acted like each punch was the most powerful thing he'd ever felt. "Wow!" Ali exclaimed, pretending to be knocked backward. "You're going to be champion someday." Linda found herself lowering her camera. Something about the scene felt too sacred to photograph. After visiting that boy, Ali moved to the next room, then the next. In each room, the same thing happened. Children who had been lying listlessly in their beds suddenly became animated. Parents who looked exhausted and hopeless began to smile. Nurses who had been moving mechanically through their routines stopped to watch and wonder. But the moment that changed everything for Linda happened in room 314. A little girl, maybe 8 years old, was lying unconscious in her bed. Her parents sat beside her, holding hands and crying quietly. The doctors had given up hope. The girl had been in a coma for 3 weeks. Ali entered the room and approached the family gently. "I'm Muhammad Ali," he said softly. "Would it be okay if I spent some time with your daughter?" The father looked up, recognition dawning in his eyes. But instead of excitement, there was anger. "You're the draft dodger," the man said bitterly. "My brother died in Vietnam last month. You think you're too good to serve your country?" Linda held her breath. This was it. The confrontation she'd been hoping for. Ali's true colors would finally show. Instead, Ali sat down beside the angry father. "I'm sorry for your loss," Ali said quietly. I can't imagine the pain you're going through. Losing your brother and watching your little girl fight for her life. Then why won't you fight for the country he died for? The father demanded. Ali was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke with a gentleness Linda had never heard before. Because I believe there's been enough fighting. Too much dying. Your brother was a hero. He fought because he believed it was right. I'm not fighting because I believe that's right. We both want the same thing. A world where little girls like your daughter can grow up safe and happy. The father stared at Ali, his anger wavering. I spend my mornings here, Ali continued, because these children are fighting the real war. Against sickness, against fear, against hopelessness. This is where heroes are made. Ali turned to the unconscious little girl and began talking to her as if she could hear every word. Hey there, beautiful. I'm Muhammad Ali. I heard you're a fighter. That's good, because I'm a fighter too. And I want to tell you something important. You're stronger than you know. For the next hour, Ali sat beside that little girl's bed, talking to her constantly. He told her jokes, described his fights, shared stories about his own childhood. The parents sat in amazement as this man they'd thought was unpatriotic poured his heart out to their unconscious daughter. You know what makes a real champion? Ali whispered to the girl. It's not about winning fights in the ring. It's about fighting for what matters most. And you, sweetheart, you're fighting the most important fight of all. You're fighting to live, to love, to bring joy to your parents. That makes you more of a champion than I'll ever be. Just as Ali finished speaking, something miraculous happened. The little girl's eyelids fluttered. Her fingers moved slightly. The heart monitor's beeping changed rhythm. She squeezed my hand, the mother cried out. She squeezed my hand. The girl's eyes opened slowly, and the first thing she saw was Muhammad Ali's face smiling down at her. Hi there, champion, Ali said gently. Welcome back. Linda Crawford was crying. She didn't know when it had started, but tears were streaming down her face as she watched this supposed villain become an angel in a hospital room. But the biggest shock was still coming. Over the following weeks, Linda continued following Ali, but now for different reasons. She watched him visit that hospital 3 times a week. She saw him pay medical bills for families who couldn't afford treatment. She witnessed him spending his own money to bring joy to children who had nothing. And then, on May 15th, Linda's world collapsed. Her own son, Michael, age 9, had been complaining of headaches for weeks. The doctors had been running tests, but Linda had been too focused on her Ali story to pay proper attention. That Tuesday morning, Dr. Peterson called with results that stopped her heart. Mrs. Crawford, I'm afraid Michael has acute lymphoblastic leukemia. We need to begin treatment immediately. Linda's legs gave out. She collapsed in her kitchen, the phone falling from her hand. Her beautiful boy, her only child, had cancer. The next few days were a blur of medical consultations, treatment plans, and terror. Michael was admitted to Cook Memorial Hospital, the same children's ward where Linda had been secretly photographing Ali. On Michael's 3rd day in the hospital, Linda was sitting beside his bed when a familiar voice spoke from the doorway. Excuse me, is this Michael Crawford's room? Linda turned and saw Muhammad Ali standing in the doorway. Her first instinct was panic. Had he discovered she was the reporter following him? Was this some kind of confrontation? But Ali's expression showed only concern. The nurses told me about a new young fighter who just joined our team, Ali said, approaching Michael's bed. I wanted to come meet him. Michael's eyes widened. Despite his illness, despite the fear, despite the pain, seeing Muhammad Ali made him smile for the first time since his diagnosis. Are you really Muhammad Ali? Michael whispered. I am. And I heard you're really Michael the Magnificent. Is that true? Michael giggled, a sound Linda thought she might never hear again. For the next hour, Ali entertained Michael with stories, taught him breathing exercises to help with nausea, and made him laugh until his sides hurt. Linda watched in amazement as her sick son became a happy child again, if only temporarily. As Ali prepared to leave, he leaned down to Linda. Mrs. Crawford, he said quietly, I know who you are. Linda's blood ran cold. I can explain. No need, Ali said gently. I've known you were following me for weeks. I also know you were assigned to write a negative story about me. Linda felt shame wash over her. Ali, I want you to know something, Ali continued. Michael is going to be fine. I've seen a lot of young fighters in this place, and that boy has championship spirit. But more importantly, he has you as his mother. The way you've been protecting him, advocating for him, fighting for him, that's what real strength looks like. Linda broke down crying. I'm so sorry. I was supposed to destroy you, and instead you're saving my son. Ali sat down beside her. You weren't trying to destroy me. You were trying to do your job, to find the truth. And maybe you found a different truth than you expected. Over the following months, as Michael underwent treatment, Ali became a regular presence in their lives. Not as the famous Muhammad Ali, but as a friend who understood that sometimes the most important battles happen outside the ring. Ali never missed one of Michael's chemotherapy sessions. He brought books, games, and most importantly, hope. When Michael was too sick to eat, Ali would sit beside him and describe the most delicious meals until Michael's appetite returned. When Michael was scared before procedures, Ali would teach him visualization techniques. Close your eyes, champ, Ali would say. Picture yourself healthy and strong. Picture yourself running and playing and being everything you want to be. That picture in your mind? That's not just imagination. That's prophecy. Linda watched her son's attitude toward his illness transform. Instead of seeing himself as a victim, Michael began seeing himself as a fighter. He started calling his chemo treatments training sessions and his recovery periods rest between rounds. After 6 months of treatment, Michael was declared cancer-free. The doctors called it a remarkable recovery, but Linda knew the truth. Medical treatment had saved Michael's body, but Muhammad Ali had saved his spirit. The story Linda finally wrote was not the one her editor had requested. The real Muhammad Ali, champion inside and outside the ring, was published in the Chicago Tribune on December 15, 1967. It revealed Ali's secret visits to children's hospitals, his anonymous donations to medical research, and his genuine commitment to helping others. The article caused a sensation. For the first time, the public saw a different side of the controversial boxer. Letters poured in from other families who had been quietly helped by Ali. Hospital workers confirmed that Ali had been visiting sick children for years, never seeking publicity or recognition. Linda's editor was furious. "This isn't what I asked for," Manning stormed. "I wanted you to destroy him, not canonize him." "Then you asked for the wrong story," Linda replied. "The truth is that Muhammad Ali is exactly who he claims to be. A man who refuses to fight in a war because he believes his fight belongs here, with sick children and struggling families." Linda Crawford resigned from the Tribune that day and began working as a freelance journalist, specializing in stories about unsung heroes and acts of hidden kindness. But her connection to Ali didn't end there. In 1970, when Ali was stripped of his boxing title and banned from fighting, Linda organized a campaign among journalists to support him. She used her platform to argue that regardless of one's opinion on the Vietnam War, Ali's character and compassion were undeniable. "I spent weeks trying to find dirt on Muhammad Ali," she wrote in a widely circulated editorial. "Instead, I found a man whose greatest victories happen when no cameras are rolling, whose most important fights are fought in hospital corridors, and whose true championship belt is the love he gives to children who need heroes." In 1974, when Ali was finally allowed to return to boxing, Linda was ringside for his fight against George Foreman in Zaire. Before the fight, Ali sought her out in the press section. "How's my boy Michael doing?" he asked. "He's 16 now, cancer-free, and wants to be a doctor," Linda replied, tears in her eyes. "He says he wants to help sick kids the way you helped him." Ali smiled. "That boy was always a champion. He just needed to learn how to see it." The impact of Linda's story extended far beyond changing public opinion about Ali. Her article inspired other journalists to look deeper, to seek the full truth rather than just the sensational headlines. It became a case study in journalism schools about the importance of thorough investigation and open-minded reporting. More importantly, it helped establish Ali's legacy as not just a great athlete, but a great human being. Michael Crawford did indeed become a doctor, specializing in pediatric oncology. In 1985, he opened the Linda Crawford Center for Child Cancer Research, funded partially by Muhammad Ali and dedicated to both healing sick children and studying the role of hope and positive thinking in recovery. Muhammad Ali taught me that healing isn't just medical, Dr. Michael Crawford explains to his patients' families. It's emotional, spiritual, and psychological. When a child believes they can win their fight, their body often follows their spirit's lead. Linda Crawford continued her journalism career, but with a transformed perspective. She became known for finding the hidden stories of compassion in unexpected places. Her book, The Man Who Changed My Mind, What Muhammad Ali Taught Me About Truth, became a bestseller in 1979. In 1984, when Ali was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, Linda was among the first to organize support for him. She created a network of journalists who had covered Ali over the years, and together they worked to ensure his legacy would be properly preserved. Muhammad Ali gave me the greatest gift a journalist can receive, Linda said in a 1996 interview. He taught me that the truth is usually more beautiful than the story you think you're looking for. The relationship between Linda Crawford and Muhammad Ali lasted until his death in 2016. At his funeral, Linda delivered a eulogy that brought thousands to tears. Muhammad Ali knocked me out, she said, not with his fists, but with his heart. I came to expose a hypocrite and instead discovered a saint. I came to write about a draft dodger and instead found a man who never dodged his responsibility to love. After Ali's death, Linda established the Muhammad Ali Truth Foundation, dedicated to teaching young journalists the importance of looking beyond surface controversies to find the deeper human stories. Today, at age 86, Linda Crawford still visits the Children's Cancer Ward at Cook Memorial Hospital. She brings books, games, and most importantly, stories about a boxer who taught her that sometimes our greatest enemies become our most important teachers. People ask me about my greatest scoop, Linda says from her Chicago apartment, surrounded by photos of the children she's helped over the years, alongside images of Ali. It wasn't exposing a scandal or uncovering corruption. It was discovering that sometimes the person you think you understand least is the person you need to understand most. The hospital room where Ali first met Michael has been preserved as the Muhammad Ali Hope Room. On the wall hangs a photo of Ali with young Michael, along with Linda's original article from 1967. Every year on the anniversary of Michael's diagnosis, Linda returns to that room and reads Ali's words aloud to current patients. You're fighting the most important fight of all. You're fighting to live, to love, to bring joy to your parents. That makes you more of a champion than I'll ever be. In 2018, Linda published her final book, Lessons from a Champion, What Muhammad Ali Taught Me About Love, Truth, and Second Chances. The dedication reads, To Muhammad Ali, who taught me that sometimes the best story is the one you didn't come to write. Dr. Michael Crawford, now 61, continues his work at the Ali Crawford Center. He has treated over 10,000 children with cancer, and his research on the psychological aspects of healing has revolutionized pediatric oncology. My mother came to destroy a man and instead helped reveal his true greatness, Michael says. Muhammad Ali saved my life twice, once as a sick child who needed hope, and once as the inspiration for my career helping other sick children. Linda Crawford's transformation from Ali's potential destroyer to his devoted advocate reminds us that truth is often more complex and more beautiful than our preconceptions. Her story teaches us that sometimes the most important discoveries happen when we put aside our assumptions and open our hearts to unexpected truth. Muhammad Ali once said, "Service to others is the rent you pay for your room here on earth." Linda Crawford learned that lesson the hard way, but it changed not just her life, but the lives of thousands of children who benefited from the love and hope that Ali's example inspired. The reporter who set out to destroy Muhammad Ali instead became the guardian of his legacy, proving that sometimes the most powerful victories happen not in boxing rings, but in the quiet moments when one human being chooses to see the truth in another. Linda Crawford's hands were shaking when she first typed that headline about Muhammad Ali in 1967. 57 years later, her hands still shake sometimes. But now it's from the overwhelming gratitude of knowing that her greatest professional failure became her most important personal success. She went looking for a story about a draft dodger and found instead a story about love, compassion, and the courage to change your mind when faced with unexpected truth. That's not just journalism. That's transformation. That's the power of seeing beyond the surface to find the champion that lives in every human heart.